Hello, everyone. Welcome to So Jannelle. I'm your host, Jannelle So, and we are still celebrating the third anniversary of So Jannelle. Why not? It's good to give give people reasons to celebrate during this time of a global pandemic. And of course, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us on our Virtual Sojourn. This was the event to celebrate So Jannelle 3, which was our third anniversary last July 25. If you missed that, the full video is now up on our Facebook page, and commercial-free videos are also now up on our YouTube channel. Of course, we are sharing them with you as well, our TV viewers. Last week, we aired the first talk of our sojourn that was So Awoke, understanding the issues that matter, understanding social issues. But today, we're going to be sharing some tips from moms and families and parents as we talk about being so aware of the things that truly matter in life. I think one thing that this pandemic has underscored is the definition of essential. Aside from basic necessities, what are the things that we cannot live without? And for me, and I know that for a lot of Filipinos out there, I usually talk about the 3 F's: food, faith, and of course, family. And that's what we're going to be giving you today, some inspiration from some of our interviews. We've interviewed a family, some different moms as well, as we open today with Janice Ilao. She is a STEM advocate, STEM and sustainability advocate, and she talks to us about probably using this time of lockdown and quarantine to instill the love in our children, the love for science and math. Janice, thank you so much for making time for us all the way from Hong Kong.
Thank you so much, Jannelle, for having me.
I've heard so much about you, and we are very proud of you and your accomplishments as a Filipina that's pioneering in the field of STEM. How many are you guys in this field?
I mean, there are a couple of us, and when I was growing up, there was not very many role models. It was hard because I think you were against the grain. Everybody wanted to go to the typical Filipino way of succeeding. If you're really talented and you're very passionate and you're willing to put in the hard work, you will get to a point where you're going to receive some accolades.
We're talking about some of the things that we as parents can do in order to help our children, especially now that we're spending a lot of time with them. And there are 5 things that you espouse, 5 key messages that you try to explain and get across to people when you do your talks and interviews. So the first one is having the right foundation.
And now as a parent and having kids of my own, I can see why having the right level of foundation is important, because it's almost like when I'm not there, I want my kids to be consistent in the way they behave, and they have these principles that are so unshakable that no matter what happens, I won't ever have to worry about the decisions they make. One is definitely, I want them to always think critically. Don't just rely on the information that's given to you, but be humble enough to accept that there are things you don't know. The second is being willing to fail and not be scared of failure. And then the last thing is self-awareness. When my son is so upset, he starts just crying, right? And as parents, we say, oh, stop crying. Especially in Filipino, you say, oh, tahan na, don't cry.
Yes.
And I feel like that's so counterintuitive to the life lesson we're teaching them, which is it's okay to cry.
Right. You're dismissing the emotions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually teaching them that not having emotions is a bad thing.
Yes.
Negative emotions.
Your second point, which is very good, is our parents cannot protect us from pain, but they can help overcome challenges, especially if we ask for help.
And what I've been doing recently is I would tell especially my daughter who's in her preteens, she's turning 11. And when she has a bullying incident or she has an argument with a friend or she feels like she's being left out, I notice that when I just sit there and then I tell her, oh, I've been through that. And I know it must be so painful.
Yes.
And then that's when she starts opening up to me. And then that's when she realizes, and she says, it's so painful, mommy. And then she tells me, and as a parent, I want to protect her. But I realize that it's counterintuitive, because if I protect her, she will never know what it's like to succeed from that.
Now, we're coming to you also as a STEM advocate. And how do we, because I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to love math or science. Lily now enjoys numbers. So
Awesome.
how, as a parent, how do you do it? How did your parents do this with you?
Every dinner time, just before dinner, we were supposed to read aloud to my parents a short story. And then my parents would ask us questions.
Okay.
But not a typical question in like reading class where
Right.
what's the name of the main character? No.
Right.
Like, what didn't you like about the story? What would you have changed from the decision made by the main character? Things like that.
Oh wow.
Kind of deep.
That would be your dinner conversation, right?
Yeah, that would be the first part.
Oh, there's a second part. Okay.
The second part is they would ask us to talk about political events. And growing up in the Marcos era,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
you can imagine what the dining table conversation was like.
Right.
But that gave us a level of critical thinking like no other.
So what kind of conversations are you having with your children now with this pandemic, with some kind of unrest?
They would ask me like, why would someone judge a person based on the color of their skin? Isaac loves science. He'll be like, when 99.99% of our DNA is similar, I don't understand. Like,
How old is he?
He's 8.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm trying to make STEM a lifestyle, like the way that they think, so that even if they don't choose a STEM career or a science or math career, I still want them to kind of espouse the principles, like checking what information is already out there, doing your research.
And you know what? It makes sense because math and science, a lot of it are critical thinking.
That's one bit, the critical thinking. The other bit is then you also have to practice it. So at home right now, what you could do is when you bake, you can say, this is what a half looks like.
Right.
This is what that, so that they're not intimidated. Because I think the way we teach math nowadays is so far removed from our daily life. That's why when we do our math subjects, we are so intimidated by it.
Right.
Because we don't see how this relates. But math is everywhere, from your address, your postcode. Why is your postcode this way?
And I like that. I think our moms that are watching are getting nuggets of wisdom now from you. And so just to wrap this up, you're coming out with a book.
Yeah, so the book is titled Sparky and Benny's Big Home Mystery. It's basically about 2 whales that find out they're losing their homes in the Arctic. I wrote it with Esther. There is a lot of science and there's a bit of math in it, but it's more embedded in the story. And I hope that in writing this book, we're trying to apoliticize it by saying it's really all about losing our home. If I bring it down to the simplest way of explaining why we should care about climate change.
I like that because especially here in the States, everything is being politicized, even the wearing of the mask, right?
Yes, yeah.
And as a parting shot, how do you define science? How do you define math? And how do you define how it's going to affect our lives moving forward?
As a Filipino growing up in the Philippines, we are not really encouraged, to think about science as if it was in the same way we think about religion, right? And I often get people questioning me as to where my loyalties lie, God or science. But what people don't understand is it's not a choice to me. So what God has created for us is so unimaginable, and you cannot even out-invent what he's invented. What science and math has done is to explain that invention, so we understand how to take care of those inventions. So what science does is to explain to us how amazing this creation is and how to protect that creation. And it's the same with the mask, right? It's just saying, look at how amazing viruses are. Not the way it works is just crazy, right? Now we know how it works, kind of. Yes. And we know how the human body works. Yes. We want to protect the human body. And there's one way of doing it to stop that infection. Yeah, yes. Transmission. Wear a mask. So that's the solution. Part of it.
Yeah. I've been doing several interviews because of this for our virtual sojourn, and it's aptly titled like that because we're journeying toward understanding things, understanding each other, understanding our connectedness, and now even understanding science. And thank you for simplifying it for us.
Thanks, Jannelle. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Ryan Murphy's Ratched will debut on Netflix on September 18, and it stars one of our very own Filipino-American actors here in Hollywood, John Briones. But before that, John actually shared his family with us, wife Megan, daughter Isa, who's also in Hollywood, as well as son Teo, who has also been in some movies in Hollywood. And together, they quarantine as a family, and they're sharing their tips with us on how to stay sane, how to stay together as a family during the pandemic.
Not in like a dictator way. No, the two extremes.
We should make a funny little quarantine.
We should just set up cameras and just capture
GoPro.
clarity.
Yeah, we do some really
GoPro.
stupid stuff over here.
You guys, you'd make a good sitcom.
Just listing all the big.
We're still talking about food.
We never stop.
Oh, I love your family. John Briones, Megan Briones, Isa, and Teo, the Briones family, thank you so much for joining us on this sojourn.
Hi, Jannelle. Thanks for having us.
You know, one of the things that the recent world events are making us realize is the importance of family, right? But we also are hearing jokes and seeing parodies about how, you know, sometimes we want to kill each other, right? Sometimes we really actually enjoy each other. What's it been like for you guys?
Well, first of all, it's been nice having Isa home because she has her own apartment here in LA. So that's been really nice. But you know, sometimes we do get on each other's nerves once in a while. But we have the yard. We've got
a lot of
different
space.
spaces
Yeah.
that
We can all claim our own
yeah
areas.
and we all have headphones.
That's important. But Isa, that's very rare for a girl your age, you know, going back home and wanting to quarantine with parents, with family. Why?
We have lucked out in the way that we are very close as a family, even when, you know, family squabbles happen or you get on each other's nerves. At the end of the day, we still really enjoy each other's company, which can be kind of hard to find, unfortunately, in families, but we really like each other.
John, I've interviewed you on my old show many years ago, and I've seen kind of your family grow. I've interviewed Teo when he was what? 6, 5, right? Very
During Wind River, right? Or even earlier.
even before that. Yes. Yeah. Why have you kept your family unit important and a priority for all of you?
Well, I think because I left the country, my country, the Philippines, and I've always been alone. There's really no family around me. And then I met Megan. That was the foundation of our family. And Megan's the most important thing in my life. We always do things together. We always did things together. And then when we had these two decisions to really be together all the time, it's so important to be together because family is everything. And you, especially in this business, you need a really strong support system. Nowhere can you get that better than in family.
We did make a pact after we got married that we wouldn't be apart longer than a couple of weeks, like maybe 3 weeks or something like that. And we kept that until London, the West End revival, and that was in 2014. But at that point, we had been married for 21 years.
Okay.
That's a big indication. Like if you're committing to something like that, to like always make sure that I was going to be where he was, and I was going to be take the kids with me. We were always going to just go where he was. But that was, you know, the foundation of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to raise our family.
Well, I hear that there are bickerings, you know, cats and dogs, like sisters and brothers. What's your relationship like? Oh, there.
I think that being apart from each other has always been good for our relationship.
Yes.
Then
That's very
Diplomatic. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Okay, but then once we then
Came together for
come
quarantine.
together again after long periods of not really being together for a long time, then we're closer than ever.
and you kind of feel that age difference of like the younger brother trying to terrorize you. And so that was like a big characteristic of our sibling relationship, was just like, trying to push each other's buttons. But once I moved away, I think we somehow grew closer.
They say parents are largely to credit for or blame for the success or failure of a family. John, do you agree?
A parent can only do so much. There are outside influences that get that's brought into the equation, right? Right?
Yeah. I mean, you lay that foundation and you just hope that the foundation that you have lain for all those years sticks with them.
When do you stop teaching? And when do you stop telling them what to do?
That's continuous. It never
Yeah.
stops. You pick your battles with them, and sometimes you just let them learn it by themselves. But you're always there to jump in.
When you get to be Issa's age, like, we can't tell her what to do. You can give an opinion when it's asked for, and often when it's not asked for.
Judgmental.
And make sure and make sure you word it well.
Right. So who's the stricter parent?
For the most part, these two are angels.
They're good kids.
They're great, wonderful kids. They just, they're
Have their
very
moments, but they're angels.
they have strong personalities, and they're very artistic, very creative,
Very emotional.
Very good with
and very emotional.
I don't know where they got that.
But I mean, the thing that says about my lovely, lovely parents here, the fact that they can kind of give and take that responsibility, it just shows how much of a unit they are. There's no like, oh, this is his job, this is her job, or that's not my area. They're always a unit. So that is just how they've raised us.
Yeah, baby.
Together. So, especially now that I've like left the home a little bit and have a little more distance, I've had more time to like examine what my upbringing was and what their kind of parenting style was, and it honestly makes me think like that's exactly how I would want to raise my kids, like, and in the way that they're so together, and also gave me so much independence when they knew that they had given me all the tools that I needed, and it was up to me then to make that decision. And that even when they stopped like always telling you what to do, because of the foundation they've laid, I always come back to them just for my own reasons. I'm always like, I don't know what to do here. Tell me, help me. And then it's like a never ending thing. But now it's more like I seek their advice all the time.
It is very beautiful. I guess what I wanted to point out is the foundation of your family, because this is when the going gets tough. There's a lot that's going on right now. How have you as a family reacted and responded? And do you discuss that?
This year has been I think, a lot of opportunities to do something different, which is good. And I think it's universal right now. It's not just our family. It's all over the world, not just in this country. So it's an opportunity to learn and to do something about it.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so impressed also with Isa. She's not just beautiful and very talented, using her art to raise, realizing that you could use this and you want to do it. Because you didn't have to.
I just thought like this is one little tiny thing that is specific to me. My mom and I, we started painting in quarantine, so we found a really fun hobby, and I had made some pieces and I was posting them online, and people were asking if I ever wanted to sell them, and I never did until it came to this, and I was like, actually, I would totally do this as long as it went to charity. Like that would be the only way that I would do it. So it kind of just naturally came about as like, what else can I do? This is something I can do right now, tangibly. This is something I can offer to the world.
Wow, that's awesome. Speaking of learnings, Teo, learning from this period, what have you learned? What have you realized?
Things happening right now, a lot of not necessarily good things. And I think that this is all just something that we can just take and say, hey, like, we can learn from this and maybe not do this again.
Move forward, be smarter.
Yeah, and perhaps create a better world with what we're learning right now.
How have you coped through all that?
I mean, your parents, they're your life support. If you're having a problem, they're what helps you.
We're here for you, buddy.
Yeah, and
also doing what you love, because you've been playing, you've been practicing drums, practicing instruments.
I think that's what's
Guitar.
keeping
yeah. That's another thing that's definitely keeping me alive. Just my hobbies, and when I'm doing stuff like that, like playing music, everything just sort of goes away, and I'm just playing music.
Message for all the moms, I guess, is that are maybe having a hard time through quarantine, having a hard time laying that foundation.
The most important job in the world is parenting your children and creating good people, teaching your children how to be good people. Aside from feeding them and just keeping them alive, which is job one, but next after keeping them alive is teaching them how to be good people, so that the world, the next generation, is populated with good people.
John, how does it make you feel listening to this, doing this interview? This is the family that you've built with Megan.
It's been a long journey, and and it's gonna be, there's more real estate to travel, but I think we're happy with what we've done, and we're looking forward to what we're gonna do some more. I guess the next step for them is leaving us.
I just hope they don't go too far.
Yeah. And it's it's nonstop.
There will never be a fully empty nest for you guys, I feel like, because will always be there.
I'm a little afraid that Teo might never leave.
The two extremes, me leaving forever and him never leaving.
No, I'm kidding. But I feel free to stay.
This is so much fun. People are watching, parents are watching. I know we've gotten the advice from Megan. What about you? Any message for families out there, for dads maybe?
Without sounding corny, I always say, do things with love, because you can't go wrong with that. Do your best and be kind to yourself. Just if you make a mistake, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up, and just enjoy and love it.
Isa, your dad spoke about the future, about projects. Fans, talk to your fans. Where can we catch you next?
Just like everyone, who knows right now with the state of the world, but I think we're all just trying to stay creative. So I'm definitely just focusing on art, and I will be doing another auction type thing. So look out for that.
And John, what about you?
I am looking forward to the release of Ratchet, the show, our new show, Ratchet, for Netflix in September. So
that's soon. We'll all watch out for that. And Megan and Teo.
I had a few gigs that were lined up, but they are not happening now.
Next year.
And she's baking a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, and
We're all
think
getting fat
I
over
think
here.
she needs to open her own bake shop because she's amazing.
Teo, your music, how's it going?
It's going good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's so
good.
talented. He plays the drums, the guitar, the bass. What else do you play?
He just keeps picking up new instruments and just like immediately.
So there's baking, there's music, there's acting, and then just the dynamics. It's been amazing, and it's been refreshing talking to you guys. And stay safe. And thank you for making time for us.
Thank you, Jannelle, and to your family as well.
This is perhaps one of my favorite mom groups. They are comprised of Broadway alums Jennifer Paz, Didi Magno Hall, and Joan Amadelia with their friend Ai Chung. As friends, they also formed Mama Bears. And with our Sojourn, they came together to bear their souls with us. As moms, how difficult is it to mother during a pandemic, to explain things to our children, and of course, how to create beautiful music together as well. Enjoy this one.
Okay. All right, ready? Let's go back to July 2019. Do you remember what you mamas were doing?
Oh, a year ago, I know this because of my Facebook memories. I was in Japan. we were traveling in Japan. We were living it up without the kids.
And I'm sure back then you had no idea that this was going to happen just 12 months later.
No, we were already discussing saving up so we can take a trip with our kids and bring because I'm Japanese, my husband's Chinese, and my kids have never been to Japan. So we were like, they're 9 and 11, maybe in a year or two, like we can bring them and make this epic trip to Japan and let's start saving money.
What about you, Didi?
Also, I was reminded by my Facebook memories of what we were doing July last year. I was also traveling for business, for work as well as family. My youngest nephew was born around this time. And then I went to New York and saw a Broadway show, was rebitten by the bug again.
What about you, Jen?
So my Facebook memories said that this time last year we were traveling. We had taken our second annual, we were trying to make this a tradition to go up to Santa Barbara to watch the fireworks. So we had gone there for a second time last year. And also we went to Catalina Island for the first time with some friends to celebrate their anniversary. And then also it was this time last year that we had gone to the opening of Miss Saigon at the Pantages, July 19th, I remember. And then also all of us Mama Bears, we went to go support some friends at the Hollywood Bowl in Into the Woods. A lot different now.
Very mellow now, right? But how does it's like it's bittersweet when you think about what was happening before, but then also it's kind of hopeful because now we don't know the unknown. We just remain positive that it's going to be for the better because things happen for a reason, right? Joan, what were you doing?
I was actually in Connecticut. I was doing a show called Passing Through, and the show is about, it's funny, the show is about, based on a true story about a guy who walked from Pennsylvania to Half Moon Bay, like on foot, right? Like, but he was like, his theme was to disconnect in order to connect. So he talked to people along the way. And what he got out of it is that we just really need to listen to everybody and look at where we're now.
And I like that, disconnect to connect.
Yeah.
So at what point this year did you realize that, oh no, something's gonna change?
Oh gosh, I mean, I had that moment, I think maybe the first or second week of lockdown where we had camped out in the living room because, we're just trying to make it fun to be in lockdown. And I remember with Julian sleeping between me and Anthony, and just looking across from him, Julian peacefully sleeping, and I looked at Anthony, and I just started crying, and I was like, wow, this is a new normal. I really started to feel sort of the weight of what was happening, the energy shift with everything, and that was sort of my first realization that, okay, we're facing something unprecedented, and I panicked in that moment.
What about you, At what point did you realize that something was changing?
In the beginning, I remember having the talk with my kids because, you know, they were just like, woohoo, vacation. But then we had to stay home. So I think pretty early on, I explained to them, and what clicked for them is when I told them, I said, you know, this is huge. And one day you're going to have kids. And one day your kids are going to learn about this in school. And your grandkids, and they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, what was it like during the pandemic in 2020? This is going to be in your children's history book. It's a big deal, and you kind of need to pay attention to what's going on. And so I think that was kind of their moment of like, oh, that's kind of cool. So, you know, and once in a while I use that as like, what are you going to tell your kids you did while you were home? On your iPad all day? No, that's not going to work. We need to have something a little more concrete we can say that we took from this.
Life at the beginning of quarantine was not that different for my husband and I. The only difference was that the kids were with us 24/7. So we didn't have that little break while they were in school. One of the things that I loved about the quarantine time to be with my family was that we were getting closer to my faith, to our faith, and we were reading together. We were reading daily devotions together. So that was one thing that I was thankful for, that I could remind our kids, let's try and remember to be grateful for the things that we have, and not to take these things for granted, because you just never know.
Yeah, but Joan, as a homeschooling mom, I would imagine that your schedule didn't change, your reality didn't change much. But still, how did this quarantine affect your family life?
Well, the reason why, if you ask any homeschooler, mostly like people who have been homeschooling for a while, the first choice reason they have is freedom. They don't want any four walls. That kid is just in a conveyor belt sort of education. Like, you know, so my child could be sitting in a park and learning about history and everything. That's what changed. We can't just go anywhere, especially the library, where you're like, I need this, but we don't want to use the internet, but we want to use actual books. That's really what changed. You know, you can't just do stuff outside.
And aside from the pandemic, there's also the issue of social unrest, social injustice. You mentioned that, Jan. You have Julian, who's a second grader?
It's going to be an incoming second grader, yeah.
Did you make the effort to explain? Because sometimes children, we try to protect them from what's ugly and evil and sad and bad. But to me, also with Lily, who's 4, tried to sit her down and I tried to talk to her about these issues. How do you do that to a first grader?
We've been involved with different organizations, activist organizations over the years. So I think by virtue of being our kid, he's exposed to these points of views, and he's exposed to a lot of these issues. We actually learn from him a lot of the times, because when we watch him play with his friends and at school, you know, kids just want to play. They don't look at race. They don't look at religion. They just like, oh, you like Pokemon, I like Pokemon. And, you know, he's got all kinds of diverse friends. We've been very careful not to sort of put thoughts in his head about what's going on, because, you know, kids don't see that. They just want to be. If he'll catch something on the news and he has questions, or I'll ask him, like, do you have any questions about this? And he's like, Mommy, yes, I know. Like, it's almost like, I know, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to tell me. So it's very interesting to just watch him, because he's so pure in his thoughts about everything.
What we try to do is plant seeds. Good seed.
Share those seeds. What seeds are those?
And then we have to also be careful about what we say too, because we want to make sure that they can form their own ideas and opinions too. My husband and I were traveling with a show called Wicked when Caden was born. So he had 3 years, 3 birthdays on the tour of Wicked. And during that time, and he has been exposed to a colorful, array of people and experiences and places. We traveled all over the country and parts of Canada. And so what they grow to know is that these are all of God's children. We are all of God's children. I want to also be careful to not plant seeds that might change that, because once you get older, all of a sudden that lens changes.
I find that it's sometimes a fine line between explaining to them that there are different people without, and that there are people who have struggles, without making it in their head that it's something we need to feel sorry for. Well, we are people of color, and sometimes with that comes challenges. But that doesn't mean it's a really fine line, but I also want to build it up. It's also something to be proud of. Some people may not see it that way, but it's something we need to be proud of. So yeah, I have struggled with sort of finding that way of explaining where to empower you, but also prepare you to have to stand up for it or to ever defend it, So I think and as they've gotten older, we've introduced that topic more into it ties in with doing the right thing.
I think that's a good word, prepare. You want to prepare your children to be ready for what comes in the world or from the world. But then at the same time, you don't want to kind of preempt that and unnecessarily take away their innocence from them.
Yes.
But then you don't want them to go out and be naive, right? Because then people take advantage and there's evil, right?
Yes.
You right?
Everything you do, you say, they will always remember that as soon as they leave home. And they will
know what?
story over and over again, about how their childhood. We talk about our childhood. That's what's on repeat for them.
But this is serious, because I don't know if any of you have experienced, but there have been times when I had been so maybe twice, if I'll be honest, during this quarantine. Well, I'm so because they're always there, the children working from home, and you're also home and they're also home, and we're renovating our home. So it's just the stress gets up, and then there had been times when I've lost it. Have you guys done that?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Have you done that?
I don't know how this pandemic's going to be taught when they're older, that it was a big deal. But I just want to keep it positive as much as we can, even though there's breakdowns. I think, first of all, when you're tired, you make mistakes. You don't want to talk to anybody. So I just try to make sure I've at least get enough sleep.
But it's so hard to be like that, don't you think? It's so hard when it's so stressful.
Because I know that I've had some breakdowns, even at the dinner table in front of my kids. I think it's important that they see that too, that human side, because we're trying our darndest to be strong for our kids. But, you can't always be that super mom, and it's okay for them to see that human side. What we're trying to do is fill this time with good memories too, so that this pandemic is not just about what's happening around the world, but also to try to build some good memories. That's all we can do, right? That's all we have control over, is to just try to do our best.
They'll realize it one day. They don't see it today.
Right.
All they see is I didn't buy the right snacks. But 20 years from now, they're going to be like, dang, she did pretty good. So
Yes, I mean, you're not alone, moms. We are all going through this together, and don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay to break down.
And I think to realize that we just don't know. I mean, the kids, I don't know what's going to happen, but as soon as we do know, we'll figure it out. And we just kind of have faith that when the options are given to us, we'll make the best choice for us.
Me personally, I just stop myself. I just pray and I just say, if it ain't the Holy Spirit in my thoughts, take it away from me. Take it out, take it out, take it out.
Let's make this period fun for ourselves, for our children, by not worrying too much, by taking it day by day, by focusing on the positive, by focusing on making good memories. And if all else fails, so what, right? Jen, you want to talk to us about this song?
We like to chat in these, these little boxes. So we decided to just do a fun music video with filter and basically just give you a little taste of how we've been connecting during COVID.
I don't have all the answers now, gonna get there somehow.
And so we performed this particular song, which was written by my husband, Anthony Fedoroff, for a mom, just understanding that mommyhood and parenthood is about letting go. No matter the uncertainties, you just have to have faith and go where things are going to take you, because there are things that you just can't control. And so it's basically, the sentiment is, so what, and just having that strength of wisdom and faith that whatever's going to happen on the other side, you're going to be fine.
So I don't know what's next, so what? Sometimes not knowing is best, and I'm okay with that. Hey, listen, life, you don't scare me. Gonna be what I'm gonna be, so give me all you got. So I don't know what's next, so what?
Again, if you miss any of our televised segments, you actually are in for a treat if you catch us online, because on the digital space, there's no airtime. And so we give you extended versions of these interviews on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SoJannelle, as well as on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SoJannelle. If you want behind the scenes stuff, you can catch us on Instagram. We have two handles there, SoJannelle TV and SoJannelle, my personal Instagram, where you can see some of the things that I do when I'm not on camera, and some of the things that I do as a mompreneur and as a mom. Thank you so much for joining us today, every week, and on digital, on our digital channels as well. Please stay safe, guys. I'm your host, Jannelle So, and this has been So Jannelle.